Hey everyone, welcome to Source, the Rethink Mining Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Weatherell. Today we're joined by two pioneering women in the mining industry, Catharine Farrow and Nancy Guay. We're super excited to have these two members of the Rethink Mining Ventures team join us. Let's get into it. Let's jump right into this. Nancy, you're an executive in the mining company, and you're probably facing incredible pressures from a number of different angles, whether it's ESG and decarbonization, all this other stuff, investors, communities. So how does technology fit into all that?
The technology is the very important part right now to try to unlock all the opportunity that we can have. So one of the big challenges that we have right now is really the cost structure. And the only way to review our cost structure will be to increase technology level, data, strategy, everything around that. So we need to change the way we operate right now to be able to increase the productivity.
Oh, cool. And Catharine, you've been an executive of mining companies. You sit on boards of mining companies. You sit on boards of technology companies. How do you see technology fitting into the mining industry, solving challenges, moving the industry forward?
Yeah, well, certainly. I think what I'll do is take off from what Nancy just mentioned, and I think the main things there are going towards labor and the fact that we have challenges in the labor force. I think just on the ESG side, looking at water conservation and looking at decarbonization, these are huge opportunities for us. And so this isn't so much about a challenge as an opportunity in my mind. So.
Cool. Well, you mentioned labor force. I want to dive into that for a second because there's a sense that new technology is actually going to cause problems in the labor force. So if you have new technology, you don't need more truck drivers or whatever the case may be. Is that the case, or is there actually better opportunities?
Absolutely. I think there are better opportunities because I think change management is part of what we do in the mining industry anyway. But we are faced with a situation where labor and attracting labor in not just our industry but other industries is more and more of a challenge. And it becomes more and more of a challenge, especially in remote situations, let's say fly in and fly out camps or those kinds of situations where families are much more attached to staying within their family units or close to them. So I think this is a huge opportunity. I think young people entering the workforce are very motivated by the application of technology. So again, there are going to be challenges in change management, but I think the opportunities down the road are much bigger.
Going to outweigh the challenges.
Absolutely.
Nancy, you have something to add to
No,
that?
I completely agree with you. So we need to find a new way to attract new people, new kind of workforce. So this is a good one. But I want to come back on the importance of technology in the workforce because for me, the big challenge and what we really want to make sure is health and safety. And I think technology is a big driver in health and safety. So if we can remove people on the ground from the face and not expose as much people, that will be, I think, it's a big game driver for us.
That's a good segue into what I wanted to ask next. In a perfect world, people use the term mine of the future all the time, but in a perfect world, what would you see as the ideal sort of technological solutions? What would a mine look like? What technologies would be required to create that mine, and do they exist?
Yes, low emission is something that we have to keep in mind. I think make sure that we have a workplace that doesn't need as much, I don't want to say strength, but as much manipulation. So we do more careful at our people, like a better working environment. That's something to be out of the face. We look a lot to be more like comfortable on the truck, the way they drive. So everything around that. Tiredness, it's very hard. People are tired, like to be the awareness on the road. So there's things like that. So technology is there. We need to simplify, I think, the work and bring better alternative of the way we are doing it.
So in terms of alternatives, do you think that it's actually feasible to have, for example, you mentioned an underground mine that has no people underground, totally remote, and do we still use drill and blast? Do we do other stuff? Do we still need trucks? What would this look like?
I think to have nobody on the ground, it will be there one day. It's not there today. I think it's going to be a step-by-step change to do it. I think, and then yes, it's going to be there. Sampling will be different, but we can have some robots that will go. We're going to have drones that are going to do the survey as we are right now. So I think to go underground without people, I think it's something that we can see in the future, and we have to work through that. On an open pit, I think it's going to be much easier. Technology is there. I think the autonomous driving is there. How we sample, how we do the drill and blast, I think it's already there. It's just to incorporate everything together. And in terms of mill, it's more like some maintenance. So we're going to keep some people around maintenance, but the rest can be all fully automated.
Okay, cool. And Catherine, what do you think?
Yeah, I think just building on what Nancy said, it's an integration. The mine of the future right now, a lot of the technologies are available, but they're used in almost isolation.
Yep.
And whether that is geology and resource development and some of the tools available to us to automate some of those processes, to getting those directly into resource modeling, and ultimately how that might flow into mine plans, and all that exists, how that goes towards being fed into autonomous trucks operating. We understand the metallurgical aspects of each of those mining areas that we're at. Those are getting shipped to a mill. That mill is already operating with technologies that reduce, the biggest consumer of energy, for example, in mills, in processing plants, is comminution, making big chunks of rock into really, really tiny particles. And so, we have some technology available to us already that will help us reduce that footprint, which is huge. And then downstream, within the plants, sensors and just totally sensor-based technologies that remove plant operators from walking around and dealing face-to-face with reagents that may not necessarily be that good for them, or those kinds of things. I think a lot of those technologies exist. They're just sitting and being utilized in isolation rather than being married together. And I think that's possible now. It's hard, yes, but everything's hard that's worthwhile doing. And then when we get to that, then that would be a recalibration of our industry. I think a real step forward.
Cool. I wanted to dive into something, Nancy, for a second on different technologies and something what Catherine said as well, they're used in isolation. So, for example, at like typically in underground, you use four-wheeled rubber tire trucks, right? Now, what you did at Goldex was you got conveyance going. And my understanding is that if you didn't use conveyance, you couldn't have done the extension in the mine, right? So you're using this conveyance technology, yet it's not incorporated in very many mines. Like you're one of the few, I think 4 or 5 mines. There's not many around the world that are using conveyance, when in fact there's all sorts of potential efficiency gains, it's electric, et cetera. So I'm kind of curious, is there a challenge with the industry adopting technologies like your company, Agnico Eagle, has done, like the conveyance technology? And you're involved in other consortia with the Canada Mining Innovation Council trying to drive some of those technologies forward. So I'm kind of curious, do you see a bit of a pushback from mining companies adopting this?
It's all the change management, as Catherine mentioned previously. Like we used to do things in a certain way. We adjust our mine profile, our budget, our CapEx, our operational structure based on the way we know. So to change it and justify it, it's a risk factor. That are you ready to put that risk? Sometimes I don't think it's a big risk, but it's all about risk at one point. I think that's the element that it's important. And when we start a new technology, we need to understand that it's the implementation or the startup is more difficult. So you need to plan a ramp-up time. So at one point, some people say, I prefer to be safe, I wish and sorry, not to try it. But that's a big affect that we need to think about new technology. But at one point, CapEx might be more expensive. OpEx at the beginning will be the same, and then it's going to reduce. But that's at one point we need to jump in. And that's when people will be ready to jump in. I think we will see the new project and the new mine that will be built differently, hopefully. But an existing operation, it will come, but it will be more difficult. because you already had some asset and some structure that are not done properly for this new technology.
A little harder to adopt it in existing flow sheets or structures, et cetera. So on that vein, Agnico's been involved with, and you've personally been involved with the Canada Mining Innovation Council for a number of years. You've got this cultural issues, you've got the risk issues, et cetera. How do you see Canada Mining Innovation Council or CMIC addressing some of this? Like what's the role that you see that CMIC has in getting these new technologies developed and deployed?
There's a lot of technology and a lot of inventors, and I think there's a lot of good things ongoing. We cannot be everywhere. And if we start like just one or two companies to try to do it together, it takes us too much time in terms of management, understanding, question, and everything. So for us, the easiest way and the more efficient way was really to work with CIMIC and regroup. So as soon as we find a good idea, I think it's good for us. We can share it with other people and see who is interested. So then we can have a focus in the group that are working on it, and we have faster results.
Oh, cool. So you're saying that by working in groups and looking at trying to move a technology forward, you can actually de-risk it and get results faster.
Yes.
Oh, really cool. And that's really cool on developing technology. Now there's another challenge as well. You already talked about that, and that's deployment, right? Where the factor is typically a 10x, right? You spend $1 million to develop, you spend 10 to pilot, you spend 100 to try and hopefully get it to work, and then if it doesn't, then you run into a few challenges. Never happened in this industry before, has it? So we've created something called Rethink Mining Ventures, which is looking to de-risk the commercialization of some of these technologies. So I'm kind of curious, Catharine, from your perspective, what you see the role and the opportunity of Rethink Mining Ventures is.
Sure. I think one of the main things is being able to leverage the power, and Nancy used the term de-risk. You're sharing opportunity, yes, and to some people they might find that limiting, but by the same token, you're building momentum. You're providing more opportunities to pilot or create demonstration plants that can leverage the multiple companies that are involved, that are all invested in trying to make a technology work. And I think, it's getting the equipment or getting the technology into an operating mine environment that is so key. And the more people you have in that playing field, the better. Now, it obviously there will always be the corporate pull, tug of war between, it's mine or it's somebody else's or it's this and that. But the key is that we build industrial momentum to implement these things, get them showcased, get them demonstrating that we're really having an impact on productivities or efficiencies or in per ton of ore processed or whatever it is, whatever metric or set of KPIs we decide to design, because they'll all be different depending on what you're trying to deploy. And then once that's demonstrated, then I think companies can build positive feasibility studies that will really understand the full scale of changes that need to be implemented, the costs, and also the change management pieces that need to be implemented to actually get this thing into a plant working, if it's a plant-based solution. Mm-hmm. So I think it gets more eyeballs involved and more brain power at the table discussing solutions. And I always think that's worthwhile. I'm very much into collaboration when you're trying to make new things happen.
That's so true, and I think what it remove as well, we have like the syndrome to not be the first one, but the best second. so this aspect of working together, make it happen, and see this equipment running, and understand all the metrics, the KPI, to do a strong design. That's the important part.
The open innovation approach, right, which creates stuff 10 times faster,
Absolutely.
10 times better, 10 times cheaper, And it's interesting to note, too, you're probably aware of this, a lot of other industries have been using this for decades, right? And hopefully what we're seeing with CMIC is actually we're getting this into the industry as well. Now, the interesting thing, you use the term collaboration, and I know I've got a bit of a bugaboo myself because everybody's, let's collaborate, we're collaborating here, having a conversation. That's not good enough, right? I see collaboration as a continuum, and at the far end of the continuum, what we're trying to push is co-development and solutions versus just, it's more than collaborate. Collaborate's not enough. You actually got to get together, share IP, and do all this sort of stuff. Is that a fair statement?
I would say
Exactly,
so.
yes, an important one as well, Carl.
Awesome. No, just validating something I've thought about for a while.
Because we say all the time, and even in our work, everyday works, like I said, I need to collaborate with every people to make it happen, but then you need to do the follow-up and maintain the structure because at one point everybody start their own way. So no, it's very important.
Well, and it's really interesting, too, because at CMIC, what we've done is we've done the co-development of the technology, collaborating at a different level, right? And Rethink Mining Ventures, when we started down this pathway to create Rethink Mining Ventures, we looked around, we see there's VCs all over the place, right? And people hear the term ventures, so you assume you're a VC, right? But you've got VCs everywhere. You've got institutional investors. They're investing in technology for mining. There's good examples out there with technologies. There's organizations in Canada like Crystal Lakes or Jollymont in Australia. You've got BDC in Canada, and you've got Roynat, et cetera. And they're all doing this sort of stuff in a kind of like a independent sort of fashion. So how is, Catharine, I'm kind of curious, how do you see Rethink Mining Ventures being different than just any other VC that's out there? And what is the scale of the opportunity we have in our hands?
I think that, first of all, the link of bringing such a powerful group of companies together on the CMIC platform as a starting point is really, really important. And it's not just people, let's say, who are part of another corporation that the VC was sprung out of or anything else. This is just open, global, big companies, smaller companies. We have a complete suite of companies involved. And from different countries. We cover multiple continents. And I think that's very, very powerful. And I think some of these other VCs that, and there aren't very many of them, they're really linked to companies that maybe have already invested. And so there's a maybe financial link. But we don't have that in this case. This is absolutely free and clear of that kind of encumbrance. So I think that's huge. I think the number of companies involved gets more, eyeballs on the opportunities and more conversations happening. It's more opportunity to deploy because I'm like Nancy. You got to get this stuff working. When you get it to a certain phase in that co-development piece, the important thing is you've got to get whatever technology it is in the plant, in the mine, in the corporate boardroom. I don't care, but it's got to be implemented. And that is usually the hard part. That's usually when things die, because then otherwise you cannot build the strong case for implementation at a broader scale. And it can't just be one company. One company can't be the solution. And I think that's what we can leverage here is multiple companies that suddenly are we need this. Yeah, we need this. It becomes a mining solution, not just a corporate solution, because I don't think that is how we roll here. Yeah. And I don't think that from a financial perspective, that's not going to work.
Well, it's funny. I hear from startups quite often say they've talked to a single person at a mine site, and that person left, and now they don't know what to do. They no longer have. There's no market pull, right? The market pull was one guy at one mine site. It doesn't work, right?
No.
It's just a little crazy. So what's really interesting is that what we saw at CMIC is that, and we hear this all the time, right? Do you know what somebody's doing here? Do you know what somebody's doing there? What is this company doing? What's that company? And what I'm hearing from Rethink Mining Ventures now is, do you know these investors? Do you know those investors? Yeah. They're all looking at the same companies, but they're informally or not even talking to each other. So we're seeing that convening function or aggregation function as well with Rethink Mining Ventures, which is really, really, really exciting. And as well, Nancy, back to your point as well, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the scale of the challenges with the industry, it's huge, right? Like to get the technology in there, it's not nothing any single mining company is going to be able to do, any single VC is going to be able to do. It's going to take a much more concerted effort, and there's got to be speed to it as well, right? One of the biggest challenges is speed, because typically you're doing it yourselves or you're doing it with a single investor and it takes too long. So we've got to get that speed piece going at the same time as well. So what we're wondering is that, you know, what the oil and gas industry did several years ago, they created this thing called the OCGI, the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, right? And they created $1 billion fund for technology investment in the oil and gas industry, right? They got all the resources together, a single place to go. Yes, there's still the VCs doing their stuff, but this is focused on their specific challenges. Do you think something like that is necessary in the mining industry, and is that something R&V should take on?
Yes, I agree. And one of the reasons you just mentioned it, there's so many parts that needs to be developed, and they needs to be developed fast. And as soon as we're going to have the part, then the game will start with the mining company. It's going to be the implementation and integration of that. And everybody, each mining company with their culture will have their secret recipe, or they're going to do it differently. But right now, what we need is to push out the part and the compartment so we can have the full suite. And that's what we are looking for. If we don't have this full suite, we're going to be stop at each of the activities or the bottleneck that we're going to have in the mining cycle.
I would say the other thing that really is that we have the opportunity to do with that kind of fund, because I think it's absolutely what we need, is on the oil and gas climate initiative, that had the weight behind it of the individual highest levels of the corporate boardroom.
Yep.
And I think you have to have that. It has to come from those highest levels, because that's where the corporate buy-in, where you know, that support that hits the industry, both on the inter-industry side, but also for other stakeholders. It really drives the messaging home, and I think that's really important.
And you might actually also get that connectivity back to the mining company investors as well, right? Because a lot of the mining company investors are now saying, what are you doing with ESG? Well, this is what we're doing, right? We're actually investing in the technology side of things, so it addresses a couple of points. So if we're going to do something like, if R&B is going to tackle this sort of thing, and we're going to tackle this fund creation, and at the same time we're going to be taking a look at monetizing some of the existing, or seeing how we can help some of the existing projects get more capital in CMEC. What do we need to do next? What's next to try and get this thing off the ground?
I think it's bringing together the funding opportunities and the different organizations. And we've talked almost exclusively about the individual mining companies. But I think that conversation then has to shift to, okay, where's the financing also going to come from? Because I think there is support in institutional investors looking for places to put their money on the innovation side, with mining specific, or, you know, material movement or civil style of investment, and that exists. I think OEMs at the basic levels are coming. They're coming to the actual mining companies and looking for specific opportunities to invest in the development of technologies. And then there's individual investors, high net worth people. We haven't even talked about that. We've only talked about mining companies so far. And I think that for RMV is the next level of really building into that piece of leverage and networking, and just starting to layer in some real horsepower around this.
And the other side of that, like you just said, Catherine, we've only talked about mining companies so far. And it's really interesting to hear that down in a place like Silicon Valley, where they're typically tech, right? They're now seeing the importance of mining. So some of the investors and the VCs down there are starting to look at mining going, well, what's that? How do we get involved?
Yeah.
So I think there's actually a larger opportunity here at play, and hopefully we can take advantage of that as well. So cognizant that Nancy's only got a minute or so, if you had one message for a mining CEO or board, right, on this evolution of technology and how we need to do it differently, what would that message be?
I think for our industry, and it's something, and some people might, get their backs up a little bit about this, but I think it's, this is not something you have to be protective about. Most of us are, who are not in certain commodities are market takers. And the other thing is, a lot of what we have and the technologies we already deploy are not unique to your company. Your company, as Nancy always said, you'll have your individual organizational secret sauce and how you want to implement. That's fine. Let's get together as an industry and get people within the boardrooms where the decisions are implemented, the strategies are laid out, and get people working together, because that's where the opportunity lies. Other industries have done it for decades, as you pointed out earlier. We need to do it here and not be quite so protective. This is nothing to be protective about. This is an opportunity to build momentum.
Well, it's funny, Nancy, you said race to be second. The way I look at it, let's get together and race to be first together, right?
Yeah. We are late, and I think we are an industry that is very conservative. So I think we have to change that, and we have to push together to have the good piece in place. And we have to think about health and safety, and just that can be a very big battle for all of our operation.
It's funny. What I'm seeing anyway? I'm seeing an acceleration of this collaboration. Like 10 years ago when I started in CMIC, it was nearly impossible, and now we can't keep up. So is that fair to say that you're seeing more willingness for the mining companies to get together?
Yes, because the technology is there,
Yeah.
but it's not really developed for our field of expertise. So how we tweak it, how we modify it to make it happen. So the beauty is part of the technology is there. So work together and make it happen.
Make it
That's
happen. It's the whole secret sauce behind platform technologies, right?
Yeah.
It's like you build the operating system, then the company goes and adds their secret sauce to it, and there you go. That's the way it works.
Yeah. 10 years ago, either you or her made the comment, like 10 years ago, wouldn't have been having this. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been. We are making change.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that message, and Nancy was trying to make that message clear, was it has evolved.
Yeah.
Right? Because here you are sitting across the table from two women representing the mining industry. That never would have happened before.
Not at all. Ever.
Ever.
And it's really funny when I first started CMIC that before I started, 2 weeks before I started, there was a picture of the board and everybody in it, and I was embarrassed to be part of the picture because there's no women. Zero. Right?
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. But as you said, Catherine, we wouldn't have been having this same conversation. And what's really interesting, we're doing this pitch at PDAC, right? And we've got an investor panel, and it's what's really cool about it is the majority are women.
Yeah, I noticed that.
The majority are women, which is really cool. And some of the greatest conversations I've had with the investors panel are the women who can actually, they get it, they can see it, they know where we're going. It's really
We've been
cool.
through change.
Yes, exactly.
Right? We know it's possible.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's pretty funny.
Well, and that's some of the stuff you've brought to the table as well. We've been talking about a number of different things for a number of years, right? And we both see where the industry needs to go, how to get there, what the challenges are, and this change is happening.
Yeah.
And having you and Nancy as well on RMV and on the RMV board is actually going to, I think it's going to accelerate it, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all synchronized and we get it.
Yeah.
And again, having, I live in a house full of women.
Yeah,
I know what it's like.
I live in a house full of men.
Yeah.
So.
We're trading off here.
Yeah. I have keeping the bathroom floors as clean as.
That's my job on my hands and knees.
Yeah, they know it's not them.
No, they know it's me.
Yeah, that's right. You're getting blamed.
But it's funny too. One of the things we're trying to do at a conference last year, we couldn't pull it off because we tried to have Nancy as the focal point. Is this because we talked about the collaboration stuff before? What we see in specifically in the mining industry is that collaboration is regional, right? It's part of our federated nature in Canada, right? You've got the group in Sudbury work really well together. The group in Rouyn-Noranda, the Abitibi work really well together. The group in BC works really well together. Saskatchewan works really well together. But that extends internationally. as well, right? You end up with this Canada versus Australia, Canada versus South America,
absolutely.
Canada versus this. And what we're trying to do, and we're going to try and do that at this IMARC conference in the fall, is to break that down.
Mm-hmm.
Because the vision I had for this last year, and going to try and do it this year, is put a panel of innovation experts together that are Canadian and Australian, and they're all women, all of them.
I wonder how that happened. It's an interesting thing. Like maybe it's that whole change that there's less fear of change, maybe because you've already kind of been there and done that.
There's also different people coming to the table who think a little differently. You know, when I first started CMIC, people tried to get rid of me because you're a heretic. What do you know about mining? Why you bring this new stuff to the table? There's a whole idea of platforms people have never heard of.
Yeah.
Co-development people have never heard of. So it takes people like yourself and Nancy and myself and others to basically bring these new ideas to the table and force them. And get people to buy into it. So it's not hard. You just need the catalyst to say, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then have the courage to
have
do
the
it.
courage. Yeah. Yeah. There can be no fear.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do. Yeah. No, it's all good.
Yeah, it's going to be, hopefully we can pull that off.
Yeah. Looking forward.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny too about being different and upsetting and upsetting the apple cart a little bit is that we've talked about this a lot of times. What you typically see at mining conventions or PDAC is I like to say the gray-haired little white guys with the blue suits, the white shirts, and
Stale,
the
pale,
red.
and male.
I'm staying away from pale ales from now on, so I'll just remember that one. But and there's a bit of a fear to try. I actually went to a conference once as a keynote and wore jeans, and I got dressed down so badly it wasn't funny. How dare you? Where's your suit? Where's your tie? It's like, seriously, get over it, people.
Yeah,
right?
It doesn't matter. No.
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine not too long ago, and basically in a room of investors in technology, right? And there's one guy dressed in rags, like torn jeans and sandals and a T-shirt. He was the filthiest, richest guy there, right? Yeah. And there's another guy years and years ago, I remember. Well, that wasn't that long ago. It was about 15 years ago. He was asked, he was a professor, right? And he was asked to talk about photonics to some very senior government people. And he showed up. He has this favorite shirt. He probably still wears it. It's from a 1988 squash tournament. So it's pretty ratty, but he loves it. And he showed up with that and track pants and sandals. And people thought, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And they got so enamored by what he said.
Yeah.
And his intelligence that he was invited back year after year after year. So it's kind of like I like to say, it's breaking down the paradigms of what you can do, who you can do, and how you can do it, and who you can do it with, by not making assumptions, right? Oh, that must be water. Well, maybe not. Let's try it out and see. Right? That technology will never work here because we're mining, we're special.
Yeah.
You've got to wear a three-piece suit just because, or you can't have women in the boardroom table because they don't belong here, right?
Well, actually, it brings to mind something that I think in order to implement technology, and like I'm kind of thinking aloud here, but you know, the whole concept of a lot of us, because a lot of us in the mining industry are very linear thinkers, engineers, accountants, geologists,
or whatever.
It's it's very linear. They want to know what your area of expertise is. And yet when you look at the development and implementation of technology, it must completely cross areas of expertise. It must cross into the social as you get into the change management and all the other stuff. I mean, you have to be a jack of nothing, or a Jill of nothing. Like, the best thing you can be is take a completely well-rounded approach, because this is not just about putting something in a plant and making it work, flipping the switch and making it work. This is a human undertaking, and it is going to cross almost every aspect of your business. So actually, it takes people who maybe aren't good specifically at one area of expertise. And I think that's one of the things that has, in a way, held us back, because people want to know, well, are you an engineer? Are you an accountant? Are you a geologist? And who cares?
Makes no
I'm in the
difference.
mining industry. I may have started somewhere, but I want this to work for the betterment of the industry and not having, and so sometimes I wonder if we compartmentalize ourselves. Because, you look at a lot of the guys who've developed some of the major technology and communications companies in the world, the Meta and things like this. These guys didn't even graduate from university.
Yeah.
Their area of expertise, if we measure it by degrees or whatever, doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good thing. So I throw that out there as a topic of abstract conversation.
But it's funny you say that, though, because I've been underground exactly twice in my life.
Yeah.
I've never worked at an operating mine except for as a student. I don't know much about the mining industry. When I started at CMEC, I worked in a government lab for a few years doing consortium sort of projects and technology development and all that sort of thing. But here I am running a mining innovation organization. Why is that? Because in the way I've been challenged with this several times. So what are you doing? You're not a miner. You don't have 35
Well,
years
this is the problem.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
And this is what we bring to the table is we come at it differently. We look at it differently. Asking, I call it, coming at it sideways. Mm-hmm. You're asking questions other people, what they're going to look at and go, you don't understand. Well, what about this? Well, we can't. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Why not?
Exactly.
And it's funny, you talked about the human approach. There's a saying we came up with a number of years ago. Innovation happens at the speed of trust, not the speed of technology.
Oh, that's a
because
really
it's
good
about,
saying.
It's about the people
Yeah.
that are developing it and deploying it and working together to collaborate.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's something in that, and I think it's breaking down the silos, the traditional silos of this is the mine site, this is exploration, this is mining, this is operations, this is processing. No. This is a mine, and we needed to make it work better.
Yep.
And if we change something in the plant, it's going to roll up into production and even perhaps impact how we model our blocks in our block models, whatever. And then downstream, the financial, the spin-offs. Oh, we're reducing tailings going to the tailings facility. Oh, we're reducing energy. Like this is a web we're creating.
Yeah.
It's not about an area of expertise.
And it's about asking those, what you call abstract questions. They're not really abstract. They're reframing the existing case. So, for example, we were doing a workshop a couple of years ago looking at building using design thinking to look at building a roadmap for the future of surface mining. And people were talking about the world-class asset. Right? And people see a world-class asset as this thing here, right? It's that big, it's defined boundaries. And the question we asked was, well, what if it's not contiguous? What if your world-class asset is actually 10 mini mines, like in uranium, right? Mm-hmm. You want to dig a small pit. What if that's your world-class asset? That you can actually start generating revenue in 5 years instead of 20 by adopting new technology like precision mining or whatever it is, and small plants instead of large plants, mobilize, all that sort of stuff.
Or put all your processing underground.
Exactly.
And that technology exists.
That's a crazy thing. Years ago, a friend of ours, Mike McFarlane, used to work with us. And he estimated that 70 to 90% of the technology the mining industry needs exists. It's fine-tuning it or deploying it, right?
Integrating it.
Integrating, exactly.
Yeah.
And does it fit in the flow sheet? Maybe not. Then
that's a
fine-tune
huge...
the flow sheet.
Yeah. Well, and then when it comes down to, we talk about the digital transformation, it's the interoperability pieces. And we really have created niches and silos there too.
Well, it's
a huge issue.
It's funny you say that because earlier we talked about the being behind software, et cetera. But we did a poll, informal poll, and actually at one of our events a couple of years ago, we had somebody speaking about open source, the head of one of the largest open source groups. It's not Google and Android, it was another one, the Eclipse Foundation. And he did a really good talk about open source and how it fits with, beautiful talk, now it fits with mining. Half the room got it. The other half is like, you can't make money off of open source. What are you talking about? It won't work, right? And then we start talking with suppliers and miners, and everything's locked up and
yeah.
proprietary, and
Oh yeah.
and then it gets even better, because if you take a look at the value, if you want like the real value, if you're going to do that, you mentioned, Catherine, about the data, et cetera, but connectivity of the data from exploration rate to tailings, right?
It's dreadful.
It's dreadful. It doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
No.
The power, if you unlock that,
Oh.
right? If you unlock that, you could follow your mineralogy. We've had this question. It's on one of our roadmaps. What's the mineralogy from the drill core to the tailings?
And it's about the minerals too, because the rocks are made up by minerals. And whenever you're going to start to process, whether it's flotation or you're throwing things on a dump heap or whatever it is, at the end of the day, your reagents are reacting with surfaces of minerals, not
Exactly.
rocks.
Yeah.
And you float minerals or elements. You don't float rock. And, as an example. And so, for me and, my sordid past as a process mineralogist, but, the attention to detail just around the mineralogy.
Yeah.
And just following that all the way through, that will tell you about your fragmentation. That will tell you about geophysical responses as far as physical rock properties and building those out when it could be at the exploration stage, or right through to how your tailings are reacting to X, Y, Z.
Having that mineralogy from front to back would give you the value to the company.
Absolutely.
Would be so incredible. It's not funny.
I'm so happy we started talking about mineralogy.
I'm a chemist. I know nothing about hematite, jarosite.
Yeah.
That's about all I got.
That's right. Yeah.
But seriously though, the opportunity to do that, and the way I look at this is in a bit of a neophyte in this space, but looking at it differently, is that there's a couple of pieces to this. The industry talks about modeling and simulation, right?
Yeah.
What if we did what the aerospace industry does, right? You fly an airplane before you buy a rivet. Of course, you got these big simulators and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But could we do the same thing in mining? I think we absolutely we can. You can. It's going to be hard though, because what it needs is that data connectivity.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
And the second thing, and we've actually got.
I'm not sure all the data are there.
Oh, it's not there, but at least you can connect it. Then you can actually start.
Yeah.
Collecting something.
Yeah.
Collecting pieces of it.
You
that
can
are
do
put
the
together,
gap analysis.
which will be bigger than the data, right?
Yeah, which will be bigger than the data, yeah.
But you get the connectivity first. And then the second piece of that, and we've actually created a couple of charts that show in a really simplistic fashion in the various pieces of the mining process of the data and decisions you're making. What are the business decisions you're making? What data is it based on? And they're all different and they're disconnected. What if you start connecting them?
Yeah.
If you take a look at ore sorting, for example, a lot of the people are using ore sorting in front of the met plant. The value is underground or at the face. That's where the value is.
Absolutely.
Why are you not doing that? But so unlocking the data connectivity, but the second piece of that is unlocking the stranglehold from all the suppliers and proprietary information.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is what we need, what the industry needs, is the Android of mining, that is that open source platform that any supplier can connect to. And basically it provides that connectivity all the way across. And then you can get the startups that can come in there and say, oh, there's the SDK, there's the API, we can plug into that, here's how we can do that. And you can make better decisions.
Yeah.
And we've had that conversation with a number of companies. It's not there yet. It'll be a couple of years.
The motivation still is not there, but we're a small industry.
Yeah.
And, I think that we have to work together from that. From the perspective of an investor, that's the stumbling block.
Yeah.
You're really, we consider ourselves a large industry, but we're actually not. And from an investment point of view, that's why you need, I talked about momentum earlier, and that's why you need that momentum of many companies, many mines, many mining opportunities. If you're looking at, a lot of the startups on the exploration side, which, we won't talk about right now, but that is the key. We have to make this a bigger opportunity by bringing in multiple people, multiple companies, multiple opportunities for investors to even want to be here.
Yeah.
Because if it's a single solution, I don't think that's going to have legs from the investment community, especially because of the generalists out there are not going to touch us with a 10-foot pole. But even some of the ones who are used to investing in the mining industry, we were more likely to access, they're going to say, well, what's my payback? Like, is this a one mine payback? Well, then now I'm a single asset risk and everything else. But that's what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Those are the conversations that are going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's funny, it comes down to, on the technology side as well, it comes down to verticals. If you're looking for a startup or an SME or whatever to develop technology for the mining industry, the market's not big enough. Unless you're, and it's already pretty well saturated with a lot of the suppliers. There's got to be vertical markets, or there's got to be disruptive thought about how it can be applied to something you don't think is a vertical market.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's so easy to wander into the environmental, heavy construction, civil construction. I mean, look, it's so similar in a lot of ways. And some of the other companies I've worked with, like on the IT side, I mean, look, it doesn't matter if you're moving rock, whether you're doing it to build a highway or you're doing it in an open pit. It is what it is. It's rock, and you're moving it.
It's logistics.
Yeah.
Right? It's transportation material.
Big pieces of equipment and a carbon footprint. How can we change this?
Well, exactly. And it's really interesting too on the risk and investment side. There's a company I think it's in the UK somewhere, for I don't think they work with mining, but it's looking at the business model different as well. So instead of having the mining company taking the risk on this new technology being deployed, this engineering investment company will do all of it. We'll invest, but we'll also take the risk to deploy. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a percentage of the differential that we saw based on this new technology, which is it's a hard sell sometimes.
Yeah. It would be.
But if you're taking that massive risk,
if they're taking the risk, exactly.
You're going to take the big risk that you're not willing to, and we want a small piece of the upside.
And those conversations are going to be a challenge as we bring new investors into the mining industry, because a lot of companies are going to say, well, wait a minute, I put money into this as well, and blah, blah, blah. I think we can get through those, but it's just going to take a lot of hand-holding, and it is what it is. But yes, those conversations are going to be happening, because if you want to get money, then you have to be willing to give something up. It's a give and take, right?
Exactly.
But I think we can get there. I'm not super worried about it. It will take some work and some long conversations. But
it may take a shift in people too, because you talked before about getting young people here. You get the younger people in there that are exposed to these new ideas and operating models. Like, hey, why don't we do that?
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's not because they're not going to say because that's how we've always done it, because they haven't always done it, because they're new.
Yeah. Well, at least that's not an excuse.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that was good.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for tuning in to Source. We hope you'll learn some valuable insights and really cool information about the mining industry, and especially how it impacts our lives every single day. You want to stay tuned to what we're up to and the really cool innovations that are going on every single day? Connect with us on our social media channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, or at our website, rethinkmining.org. Until next time, catch you later.